Okay. So we are live on YouTube, so just so everyone knows. So these meetings can be accessed if you know someone who wanted to attend but missed it or anything else. These are available on the CDTC YouTube channel. Just some COVID-19 updates. Okay. So we are live on YouTube, so just so everyone knows. So these meetings can be, sorry about that. Okay, so nothing too new to share, although the CDTC offices have started reopening again. This is reopening 2.0. So we'll see how this goes. For now, we're just in the office. Staff is just in the office once a week, and we're not really taking visitors or letting the public in. But if you do need to come to the office for whatever reason, contact staff and we can work something out. Okay, so this morning, our first agenda item is presentation. And today we have Dylan Carey and Rebecca De La Cruz from Parks and Trails, New York. And they're going to talk about a demonstration project that they did in Poughkeepsie and some of their, ongoing demonstration. They've done a couple of demonstration projects so far. So Dylan and Rebecca, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I think Rebecca's going to share hers. She's got the presentation there.
Sorry, I lost all my controls on my screen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Can everybody see my screen? Yes, I saw a head nod. Thank you. All right. So first of all, thank you for inviting us to attend your advisory committee meeting to talk about our pop-up bike lane demonstration. We held this demonstration, as Jen said, in collaboration with the City of Poughkeepsie. We also had the Dutchess County Transportation Council assisting us, which is like the Dutchess County version of CDTC, and Sam Schwartz Engineering, which is a transportation planning and engineering consultant that was hired for the project. We later dubbed this project Market Street Connect 2 because it was a follow-up to another demonstration project that the city held in, I think it was 2016, and it was hosted along the same roadway actually. So Market Street, the street in which the project took place, has definitely been a source of inspiration for city planners over several years because of the myriad of possibilities that the roadway could be used for in addition to motor vehicle travel. It has 2 parking lanes on either side and actually 3 drive lanes, so it's big. We found in some of our research that 25 to 30% of households in the city of Poughkeepsie are estimated to not have access to a motor vehicle. So this makes transportation alternatives a necessity for a lot of city residents. So this demonstration project was incredibly important because it touched on both accessibility and connectivity and showed how the city could better plan for and accommodate its residents. So my name is Rebecca De La Cruz, and as Jen said, I'm joined by my colleague Dylan Carey. I am the project coordinator, and Dylan is the project director for Parks and Trails New York. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with Parks and Trails New York, but for those of you who are not, we are a statewide nonprofit, and we have our home base in Albany, and we work to protect, expand, and promote a network of parks and trails and open space throughout the states. We have various programming, and we do advocacy efforts at the state level. So this demonstration project was actually my first experience with what we call tactical urbanism, or more of a DIY approach. But as Jen said, PTNY has hosted demonstration projects in the past, one in which with CDTC back in, I think, 2017 in the city of Troy. So this predates myself and Dylan, but we are vaguely familiar with that project. This particular project was funded from a grant through the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee, and it was to do an all ages and abilities bicycle infrastructure toolkit. So that toolkit consisted of several written components as well as the pop-up bike lane demonstration. The written components are now all on our webpage, and I'd be happy to share the site. The resources include some case studies about various bicycle facilities. We have a traffic calming guide that's also available in print, but also on PDF. And finally, a decision matrix. And this is used to help communities identify which bicycle facilities might be best suited for them based on some of the local street characteristics. So as part of the GTSC grant, we teamed up with the city of Poughkeepsie and Sam Schwartz to host what was about a half a mile temporary two-way cycle track along Market Street and Civic Center Plaza. You might be able to see that on the map in downtown Poughkeepsie back in August of last year. So prior to the demonstration, we had certainly a lot of work to do, and a lot goes into these demos. We had to take a trip down to Poughkeepsie prior to the event to conduct some bike ped counts. We also had technology set up that measured roadway speeds. So these were placed along Market Street on the day of the demonstration, as well as 1 week following the demonstration. And we found that on the day of the demonstration, speeds averaged about 21 miles per hour. And a week later, after the demo had been taken down, they increased to about 23 miles per hour. So we believe that the presence of the temporary bike lane may have impacted some of the travel speeds that day. Similarly, the bike ped counts, we found that there were more cyclists riding along Market Street during the 4-hour period on the day of the demonstration. I think it was about 57% higher than prior to the demonstration. And again, these were all surveyed or assessed doing some bike ped counts that we had done prior to the demonstration and then on the day of the demonstration. We also surveyed riders on the day of in person, as well as we had an online survey that we shared out. And this survey was really just to gauge their sense of comfort and safety while they were using the temporary demonstration. And when riders were asked how they felt riding on the bike lane, I think we found that 67% of respondents said that they felt more comfortable and safe and would be more likely than before to travel by bicycle if the bike lane were made permanent. So preparation for this event definitely involved months of planning ahead and coordination with all the partners involved, notably the New York State Department of Transportation Region 8. So NYSDOT was consulted early on in the process. We had the consultant firm, Sam Schwartz Engineering, to develop a striping and signing plan, and city staff as well as PTNY staff were kind of there as advisors throughout that process. We also had the Dutchess County Transportation Council involved in that as well. So the striping plan, it was really more of like an implementation plan. How do we roll this out? And it included a list of materials, which, you know, in tactical urbanism projects, you kind of are really looking for a lot of found materials. And it just so happened that a lot of our partners had access to a lot of some of these materials we needed. But, you know, the list ran on. We needed, you know, 160 cones, Jersey barriers, signs, and then spray chalk. A can of spray chalk, you know, a lot of us were new to this, so we didn't really know how far one can could go. We had about 35, I think, anticipated, but we probably could have used about 45. We needed the paint for both the striping of the lines and then the stencils. So it was kind of a learning curve for a lot of us. We were fortunate to have access to Capital Roots Lending Library, which allowed us to have an additional striping machine, which was critical. Just the half mile, you know, doesn't seem like a lot, but we really did need a lot of materials. We found that Region 8, the NYSDOT, they had permitting jurisdiction over 2 of the intersections that we were going to be crossing over. So we were actually required to apply for a highway permit and a special events permit to carry out the demonstration. In addition to some of the physical event prep, we did a lot of promotion, mostly online. Because of COVID, we couldn't really do any in-person flyering. So we did have our digital flyer. We used social media and some targeted outreach. The Poughkeepsie Journal office is located right along this corridor. And just because of the roadway, the way it's set up, and you'll see shortly, I have a video that I hope does not freeze. There's a lane that is southbound. It kind of faces that north-southbound traffic. So it's very interesting. So we wanted to notify some of the stakeholders in the area that might have been impacted by some of the temporary changes we made to the roadway. So again, we put out this information on the city's website, our website. The event was all hands on deck, and we were really fortunate to have support from the local DPW and NISDOT in the process. So again, here's a quick flyover. I hope it doesn't freeze too much. You can see that the western parking lane along the corridor was temporarily resurfaced to accommodate the 12-foot wide two-way cycle track. The drive lanes on the eastern side were unaltered. We closed Civic Center Plaza from Mansion Street to Mill to southbound vehicular traffic in order to create this uninterrupted flow along the west side of the corridor. You can see the street markings were created using temporary chalk, and we used orange traffic cones and plastic jersey barriers to buffer the cyclist from travel. We had some temporary signage. You might be able to see one that had fallen over. We pushed off to the side, just as I think they said bicycles in lane, most of them. We did have some Poughkeepsie Division traffic officers that were on deck to help direct cyclists and pedestrians as well. So the setup for the demonstration started the night before. We anticipated that the traffic along Market Street would kind of taper off after the peak travel time, especially along that I mentioned, the southbound traffic. You can imagine trying to stripe in the evening hours while cars are still on the road. So very interesting experience. So we were out there doing the striping and the stenciling that night. And the project, as I said, was a little complicated just because of the roadway configuration. But it did require everyone to be out there. We were up early the following morning. I think we were all out there between 3:30 and 4. The project team, DPW staff, we were out there dropping cones, placing the jersey barriers. We had the signs put up and some of the stenciling completed. All work was officially complete by 7 a.m. And so we were able to open up the facility to all the riders. For most of us involved, this was our first demonstration project. So that coupled with trying to organize any kind of public facing event in the middle of a pandemic was certainly a unique learning experience. But it did give us an opportunity to kind of think constructively about what went right and what could be done better in the future. We really had to kind of shift gears. We started planning for this in early February of 2020 in anticipation of a May event to host in coordination with National Bike Month. But due to the pandemic, we halted some of the preparation, and there ended up being a silver lining because of the shutdown, because of the subsequent reduction in traffic. I don't think May would have actually been a fruitful time to do this or safe. So we pushed off the implementation until late August. And, under normal, ordinary circumstances, we would kind of use this demonstration project to observe some of the impacts on normal conditions. But given it was an unordinary time, we worked with what we had. And, it ended up working to our benefit because we had time to kind of work through that permitting process, which took longer than expected. The businesses and government offices were gradually reopening at that time. So it definitely, worked out in the end. I mentioned the challenge of the permitting. If you have any intersections that are, permitting jurisdiction is on NISDOT, they had a lot of questions. And, this came down to, what guidance are we using for the signage and markings? Did we have a detour route in place and a plan that we could share out with the public? All of these factors were included in the implementation plan, which Sam Schwartz helped draft. And so, we were lucky to have such reliable, persistent, and bright partners to help us through that. And again, ultimately, we got our permit approved. Another snag and something else that really, highlights how important it is to coordinate with these agencies is we found out that construction was happening along several intersections. I believe they were doing bump outs, curb extensions maybe. So we were able to coordinate ahead of time and ask them if they could halt any of the work on those particular intersections, at least for that day. And again, they were very accommodating and kind of just pushed their cones off to the side, and we were able to kind of go uninterrupted. A couple of other things that were interesting and something that we couldn't have possibly anticipated. We had vehicles that use Market Street, I'm sure, on a daily basis, and we found that they are utilizing those parking lanes as kind of stopping points to go into particular businesses. So actually had cars like driving in the bike lane, which is incredibly dangerous, obviously. So we were on damage control the whole day, and something we would consider in the future if local residents are used to using the roadway in a particular way. We need to anticipate that. We also had folks that we felt were unaware that the cycle track could be used for like their purposes. They were riding on the other side of the road and kind of looking over at the demonstration. And I think this is in part due to our inability to do some of that face-to-face outreach that we would have liked to do, and to let the locals know that the project was coming up, so they would know that it is not a special thing and they can use it. Same thing in terms of being in person and kind of social distancing guidelines. We found that the riders, it was hard to capture survey data. Some folks stopped to talk to us, but a lot of others chose to fill out our online survey. And lastly, not huge, but certainly a snag. And again, it's not something we would consider. You saw in the video, we had signs falling over. It was incredibly windy that day. So, we had sandbags weighing down these cones, and we thought, in a tactical urbanism project, you're using what you have and you hope for the best. But we eventually had to take the signs down just because they were a safety feature. So we would have thought through that a little bit more. But on a whole, despite the snags, we found that the public response was overwhelmingly positive. We felt, people had commented that the demonstration really showed the possibilities of, enhanced connectivity within the city, especially from the downtown area up to Walkway over the Hudson. I think it's just about a half mile away. And we had, officials come out. We had the mayor, the county executive. We had appearances from Senator Sue Serino, which was great to have that kind of support. So as I said, on the whole, the demonstration project was a success. But in planning any sort of projects or in any planning effort, making this a permanent fixture is definitely going to require some trade-offs. I know the city is still actively having these discussions and what the possibilities are, but we know that we really showcased kind of what the extent to which they could do with this roadway, how they can redistribute the space to accommodate, vehicles, cyclists, pedestrians, and then, how can we get to the downtown area to Walkway over the Hudson? How can we, enhance that connectivity? So overall, we hope to use a lot of the things we learned from this project to inform, other decisions in the future. I think we have some things teed up or ideas teed up as to where we think we will be hosting bike lane demonstrations or pop-ups in general in the future. And I just thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And I have my email up here if you want to email me anything after. Otherwise, I'm open to questions. I think somebody's in the chat, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Do you want me to read the questions in the chat to you, Rebecca?
Yeah, I can pull them up, Jen, if you, let's see. Let's see. Janet said, is there a reason that we do these demonstration projects as a two-way? Why are we not taking these two-way cycle tracks and splitting them to have bike flow to be similar to car flow? New York State laws are, we are vehicles, and these types of two-way cycle tracks don't feel natural to me when I am on them. That's a great question, Janet. And I think it was just that we were using NACTO's guidelines. So a two-way cycle track within the guidelines is, as long as you obviously do, you know, the buffer and everything is to guidance, they are appropriate for some roadways. And just because of how big this roadway was, it warranted or could accommodate a two-way cycle track. And that was why we kind of went with this back and forth. And then again, it's a one-way. So we wanted to have, you know, that contraflow opportunity so people could ride kind of back and forth.
I think there's also just I'm just going to kind of chime in. It's also to try and attract those cyclists who are the kind of cautious but interested, you know, maybe not as bought into the idea of cycling in a vehicular manner, but want to be able to cycle. You know, Rebecca mentioned it at the end, but one of the goals of this project was to be able to improve the connectivity between Poughkeepsie's downtown and the walkway over the Hudson, which at that end also connects to the Dutchess County Rail Trail. So you've got a lot of users in that location who are not necessarily people comfortable cycling in traffic or with high vehicle uses. And so having the two-way cycle track completely removes them from the other traffic that's going on that roadway. Also, that road is a one-way. And so by need, you needed to have, you know, you're going to have cyclists that were going counterflow from traffic. And so by having it as a two-way cycle track, we were able to keep all the cycle uses in one location, keep the car uses separate.
Thanks, Janet. Ed said, who do you need to contact to find out about the construction schedule? And did you check with utilities? Yeah, the Department of DPW, Department of Utilities, Public Works, sorry. They were the folks we had to coordinate with that notified us of the construction. We kind of were clued in. I mean, they had all their gear kind of set out on the sidewalks. But it was the city planners coordinating with DPW at that time.
And we didn't have to do any coordination with like under roadway utilities, just because it was all on the surface. So yeah, there was no digging or anything, so we didn't have to coordinate that.
Yeah. Jesse, how is the cycle track handled at traffic signals? MUTCD requires a separate signal phase to accommodate cyclists. So this was interesting and kind of, this is where those traffic officers were pretty critical. Obviously the cyclists were stopping at the red lights, but you know, the traffic officers were really there just to monitor that, because we couldn't, you know, we had confines of what we could do with the space. So it was really just having that presence monitoring at the traffic flow at those intersections. And Market Street designed as a one-way street through Ferry. Yep, Market Street is one way up until that point. It crosses over a street called Mill. And that's where you get that southbound, that 1-2 lanes, maybe turning lane to head south. So it's a very interesting configuration, and one that they've been trying to work with for a while now, as I was told. I think that the demonstration project they did in 2016 was like a road diet, and I think that they closed off both sides of the roadway and used kind of like a pop-up, I won't call it a pavilion, but kind of set up dining tables on either side of it. The contingent
part of the project that Rebecca was mentioning, you know, it's a 3-lane one-way through much of the downtown, and there's a couple of other one-ways. You know, clearly a 60s era arterial project that was designed to speed traffic flow through the city, and the city's looking at it now as something that's you know, detrimental to the health of their downtown. So as part of this project, they're not only looking at, you know, potentially installing a bike lane, but they're also looking at making that whole length of street a 2-way street. So that was partially why we wanted to demonstrate, was that there could potentially be room for both a 2-way cycle track, but also a two-way flow for, you know, for traffic.
The contingency plan, Joe asked if we had a contingency plan for weather. We did. We were looking at mid-September, I think, to have to push it off in case we had inclement weather. We weren't hoping that that would be the case, but we did have a plan just in case. And Janet, you had said that protected lanes similar to flow, having bike lanes in place similar to the flow of traffic is critical to teach cyclists the rules of the road. We agree, but the design of it was, again, done according to NACTO's guidance. So that's obviously for urban areas. So we, to our best ability, followed the guidance and striping and buffering for that project.
And I think you'll see in places where you have urban cycle facilities that are the most well-used and the most popular and safest, there are places that have two-way cycle tracks in downtown areas. That's commonly used as and thought of as the kind of highest and best facility type for cyclist safety, for attracting more cyclists to a downtown area. So that's definitely something that was a goal of ours and is a goal for similar demonstration projects we might do in the future.
Can I just clarify that answer, Dylan? Is it like I get a bike trail sectioned off from an urban center, but when you're putting a two-way bike lane cycle track in an urban center and you've got traffic flow that isn't necessarily expecting on your one-way street bikes to be coming out that way. I mean, we did a demonstration in Saratoga and I thought it was a very short street. Felt that there was real potential for people to get injured. And because people are going, it was a one-way street and bicyclists were going the other way, cars are not used to viewing that. So I support a twin cycle track, a two-way cycle track, but not, complete streets just seems to work more fluidly and safely in an urban setting. And it seems like this push to have a trail in the middle of urban traffic doesn't make sense to me as a 50+ year cyclist. I've always learned to cycle with car traffic. That's the safest. If you get hit, it's from behind, not head on. And you just have a better view similar to car traffic. Now I love the barrier aspect. And I think in your urban center here, if you split that very wide bicycle lane and you give the downtown Poughkeepsie flow both ways, you could still accommodate everyone. That street is very wide. So you have that ability to do that and provide parking. It doesn't seem like you're losing anything in the process. It just kind of keeps people flowing the way traffic is supposed to flow, and people can view it that way for safety reasons more than anything else. I just don't see these cycle tracks as safe when they're in an urban setting.
Well,
I think a big consideration, Janet, was that that Market Street in the city is the main thoroughfare for drivers, for cyclists. Like, they use it to get to and from. So the roadway, you said, you could do it on either side, but because it's one way, you'd have to remove parking on both sides of the street to accommodate two cycle tracks on either side. So by keeping it on the westbound side, we only had to take away parking on that one side. And as you know, cars love their parking. So that was a huge issue for a lot of the vehicles during the day of the demo. But it allowed to still have that parking on the eastbound side. So people didn't feel like they were completely getting it taken away. And we found, through our survey, that was a really big part of our survey, is to really find did they really feel comfortable riding on this cycle track? And like I said, I think it was 67% of respondents said they did feel more comfortable, even though it was a two-way. No one, I don't think, said we would have rather just been going in flow with traffic. But I understand as a cyclist why you would say you would feel more comfortable. I completely get it. But for that roadway, I think we felt like that was the best design to accommodate everybody, because we did, the vehicles were put off for that afternoon for sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Art, I'd be happy to get you the numbers. We actually had more data, so we had like a whole survey. So let me get you the numbers after. I'll send Jen over some documents from the day that provide some more data on the demonstration. And does the city have a clear path towards implementation, James? I wish I could say yes. They got a resurfacing job approved, but unfortunately the bike lane is not yet in their near future. But that doesn't mean that city planners aren't continuing to have those discussions. I think getting the roadway resurfaced was huge. You can't, I mean, maybe you can see it sort of in the video, but the roadway was in bad shape. So that was definitely a deterrent for riders in general, with or without the bike lane. So getting that job done was critical. We wish that could have been a resurfacing job with some striping, maybe not the barriers quite yet, but hopefully you'll get there. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, James mentioned the video. Did you guys do that with a drone? Do you have a drone to do those?
That one
do,
was, yeah, we
We
bought
do
one
have a drone.
afterwards because we liked it so much. But
Yeah, that wasn't our footage, but we do have the phone, the drone. We got to learn how to use it first, so let you know.
That was a neat feature of, really showing like the operations and stuff.
yeah, I think it really does give an angle of it that's hard to get from the surface level photos. It really was great to have.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for having us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear about it.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Dylan. We often have lots of presentations of local projects, but it's good to see like what our friends, all over the state are doing, and to, help inspire us maybe to do something different, or maybe they have just like a different way of doing it. So we really appreciate you guys stopping in this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you're welcome to stay with us, but if you're busy, we also understand if you have to leave. So
We do have a meeting soon, but we appreciate it. We'll be in touch, sure. If you have any additional questions, like I said, I'll send Jen over some additional materials, including the rest of the survey, some of the website materials, and then kind of a write-up of the event as a whole.
yeah, and we'll include those in the notes. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so getting back into the agenda, our next item is the CDPHP cycle season. Lindsay, I saw you on. I don't know if you had anything to present, or if you just wanted to talk about the rollout of this season.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jen, thank you for the invitation. So we launched our 5th season of Cycle last Monday on April 5th. One of our tactics this year for season 5 is we're going to try and celebrate all things 5. So which is why we launched on April 5th. Our early bird promotion was $55 for a seasonal membership, which is a $30 discount. So we had a lot of people sign up for that, which was great. We currently have 350 bicycles out on the road. The operations team did a really big push to get as many bikes out as they could in that first week, get all of our hubs filled up. We also have bikes on SUNY Albany's campus again this year. Students love the bikes. They ride them nonstop. We've also seen a really big increase in usage at both Sage campuses, both in Albany and Troy. So that's been great. Union College also is starting to really find our bikes over in Schenectady. So, certainly the colleges take huge advantage of the bikes being out. So they were excited to see them come out early. We also benefited from a phenomenal week of weather in our opening week. So we had 3,000 rides last week, which is record setting for us. So, all things considered, people still want to be out riding bikes, and we're off to a great start. We are in the process of rebranding some more bicycles that we took into our fleet. So, by the end of the season, we're hoping to be well over 400, possibly close to 500 bikes out in the system. We're still in Albany, Cohoes, Troy, Saratoga, and Schenectady. We've also had some discussions about expansion up into Warren County. So We're hoping that we continue those discussions and move that forward for the season. If we do that, we'll have bicycles in Glens Falls, Queensbury, and possibly up into Lake George. So we're still working on that partnership. More to come on that, but hopefully that's an announcement that we will be making in the beginning of summertime. So keep your eyes and ears for that. The other big thing in our world, sort of related to cycle, more so the micro mobility transportation world, we are piloting electric scooters this spring and summer. We have 50 of them. They are branded CDTA, so they're going to be mostly blue with red and gold striping on them, CDTA images on them. So they're going to be in Albany, Troy, Schenectady, and Saratoga. If everything goes well, Jonathan Scherzer and I, our director of marketing, are in the process of working with all of the municipal partners that we have to talk with them about locations, operational strategies, placement of the scooters. So, still a work in progress, but something that we are planning to pilot later this spring and summer. Each city will probably have 12 to 15 of these scooters. They are an Okai ES400 model with a removable, replaceable battery that will get charged in our bike shop by our operations team. It is the same operations team that runs CDPHP Cycle, so the same faces, same guys that you see out on the street working on the bikes. They're now taking the scooters under their wings too. So we're thrilled about that, to have that continuity and familiarity and just the high level of customer service that that team brings to the world of micromobility for us. So like I said, we're still developing it. It's a whole new world for us, but an exciting world, something that people have been interested in. And we hope to have them, if everything goes well in a perfect world, we'd like to have them out for Memorial Day weekend. So we'll see kind of how we progress with our conversations with the cities, their comfort level. So far everything has gone well. I think they have a lot of trust and confidence in the products that we have provided so far with the bike share. So we're, going to shoot for the same high level of quality with these scooters. We're implementing a very strict operational policy. For our users, they have to be locked to things. We're going to have scooter specific locking racks that look very similar to our cycle racks, but with the blue, red, and gold branding of CDTA that the scooters will get locked to. There will be 2 to 3 racks in each of the cities where the scooters have to be locked to. And there will be a fine / penalty system put into place for users who don't follow the rules of locking and proper usage of the scooters, just so we can try and, like I said, keep the quality control and not have any, sprawl of these scooters that I'm sure everybody has seen the awful pictures of scooters thrown on sidewalks and thrown in the middle of the street. So our goal with this and our operations team is going to be, right on top of it, tracking scooters, watching behaviors, that kind of thing, is to try and keep this a neat and tidy operation as much as we can. So it's going to be a big educational push on our part with the users, social media messaging, working with our municipal partners to get educational pieces out. So certainly a big undertaking, but something that we're excited for this season. So between almost 500 bikes and 50 e-scooters, we're going to be a busy bunch of folks out there this season, but something that we're super excited for.
Thanks, Lindsay. Waterford's included this year?
Yes. Yep. They were going to put bikes down at the visitor center by the harbor again. The bikes are actually going up there at the end of this week. We've been talking to Harbor Master Jeff Cleary up there, and we're hooking up with him either Thursday or Friday, kind of weather pending, to get the bikes in there, which we're glad to be getting up there early this year. We weren't up there last year with the shutdown and all, but we spoke to him early this season, and he was excited to get the bikes back ahead of tugboat season, and now that the canals will be opening up in late May. So we'll be up there early and letting everybody know that the bikes are back in Waterford.
Okay, I'm just reading some questions from the chat.
Sure.
Are there, I think the answer to this is no, but are there any e-bikes this year?
Maybe. At first, over the winter, as we were kind of talking about e-scooters, e-bikes, we didn't think that we would be able to get our hands on any because the production of all e-vehicles had slowed down tremendously with the pandemic. But our operations provider, Mobility Cloud, informed us at the end of February, early March, that he had a lead to potentially hook us into another e-bike order that he would be placing. That if everything goes according to plan, we could have a handful of e-bikes out into the system by the end of the season. Not something that we're promising, but something that we are in fact shooting for. So it is a possibility. It would be a small amount just because, like I said, we'd kind of be adding on to an existing order for our provider. But if we can get them here in time to get them out for season 5, we would love to do that.
Cool. And then another question, have you done lessons learned from larger cities that have launched e-scooters like Denver? How are we going to regulate that they're not used on sidewalks, and what is their max speed?
We have done copious amounts of research on other systems that have run e-scooters, both that have been successful, some that have been unsuccessful. Our provider, Mobility Cloud, has been very, very helpful in teaching myself and Steve, our operations manager, just about the ins and outs of running electric scooters. So we have done a ton of research, which is why we're kind of taking our time with this and starting slowly. As far as the operational procedure that, we're, like I said, in leading off, we're going to do our best to keep it as neat and tidy as we can. And that's why we're right off the bat implementing the penalty and fining policy, to try and, keep our behavior from our users as good as we can. E-scooters are not allowed on sidewalks. So if we see someone riding on a sidewalk or we get reports of it, it's something that we're going to look into, and those users will be penalized as well. These e-scooters go between 15 and 18 miles per hour. We do have the ability to govern the speed down. Actually, something that we're looking into is a lot of systems have a feature where when it's your first ride on a scooter, you can't go above 8 miles an hour on your ride. So that's something that we're very interested in, just to kind of get people onto the scooter the first time and kind of learn it, because it's much different than riding a bike. It's a different feel, it's a different balance. It takes a little bit of getting used to. So we also have very tight geofencing capability. So some of our conversations with the municipalities that we've had so far, one of the questions we ask them, are there pedestrian areas, park areas where you absolutely don't want these scooters to go? We have the ability to draw a geofence no-go zone, so to speak. For instance, Congress Park, bicycles not allowed in Congress Park. Obviously, e-scooters not allowed also. So what we would do, the service area for these scooters is going to be very similar to the service area for the cycle bikes, but we're going to have these geofenced areas drawn in also. So in the system area for Saratoga, you'll see, when you look at the map on the app or on the website, you're going to see an extra loop in that Saratoga service area that doesn't let you go into Congress Park. The scooters are GPS like the bicycles are. So when the scooter senses that it has crossed over a no-go zone, the motor on it will shut down. The user will get a notification, and the scooter will shut down until it's brought back outside of that geofenced area.
We have a couple of questions. If a city wanted to limit speed in a particular area, could that be done?
We're working with Mobility Cloud on that. That's a tricky one. We have the ability to govern the scooter. We have the ability to say you can't go here and have the scooter know that it can't go here. But right now we're trying to put both of those pieces together to address that point. So right now we cannot do that specifically unless we were to, govern the entire system. So, work to be done on that end for sure.
And then James asks, I don't know what this means, but maybe you do. Can the scooters bar spin, and how about tail whip?
I would advise no on both.
Sounds like I'm going to have to find out for myself.
James, settle down. Come on, James, you're on our side, remember?
I think Steve Bradsfitz would support that.
James, we'll take this offline.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. I think that our region is at an advantage in that we get to kind of see what all these other cities have done,
Yeah.
good, bad, ugly, everything, and learn from that. So that's really good for us. We can do this right the first time. If people are interested, the New York State Association of MPOs on our website had pulled together, really compiled like all the different regulatory ordinance language related to all e-mobility. And we made a toolbox for that on the New York City MPO website. So I can share that in the notes if people are interested, but it'll be fun to watch how this, if it expands mobility, how it changes mobility, how they're used. So thanks, Lindsay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So the next agenda item is the Capital Coexist 2.0. So I had mentioned last meeting that we received 7 mini grant proposals. They were all approved for funding and are moving forward. We have some new communities involved that we're really excited. We have students involved in one project. We have 2 different entities doing work in Corinth, which is a new community, a more rural village type of setting. And then some other good projects. We also have, because of COVID, we gave applicants, mini grant awardees in 2020, the option to roll their grant over to this year if they didn't feel like they would be able to complete their project as they wanted to. So these are the applicants that will either complete or be finishing their project this year. So a lot of little bike and ped and general traffic safety projects are going on around the region. Another update on our Smart Communities program. So we had mentioned that we released a request for expressions of interest to develop a regional Smart Communities toolbox. And this toolbox would define what smart cities means, since this is still kind of sometimes misunderstood or characterized differently depending upon where you're going or like what kind of local government department you're talking about. Identify underutilized evolving technologies that can be deployed in the capital region. It will provide case studies of similar sized towns and cities that have been successful in implementing these projects, and then develop a roadmap so that if a local government is interested in implementing a smart cities project, some steps and guidance on how to do that. We received 6 expressions of interest from consultant teams, and we will be evaluating those and choosing a consultant soon. And then we have an update on for Bike Month, the Ditch the Car pledge. I did see Rima. I think Rima's.
Yeah, hey.
Hi, good morning, Rima.
Good morning. Excuse me. So just yesterday, we got a green light to move forward with the Ditch the Car challenge. So we're going to be working with a web developer to create a platform on the CDTC website to implement that challenge. And this year it's going to be in lieu of any sort of bike to work programming or bike to school programming. But in future years, I anticipate that we're going to be adding this challenge to the bike to work and the bike to school challenges. So we'll have this one that will be throughout the warmer months, as opposed to the bike to work and bike to school, which will be just that those week-long challenges. So more on that next month. The timeline hasn't been finalized as to when this will get rolled out. I'm hoping it will be in time for bike to work, but we might just missed that that launch date. So hopefully at the latest, it'll get launched at the end of May or early June.
Right. And once we have information, we can share it with everyone.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Rima.
Yep.
The next agenda item that we wanted to let everyone know about is the CDTC CDRPC Technical Assistance Program. So we are accepting applications. And this is actually, it says 2020, but this is a new round of applications that we will be funding. And these types of projects, these are really small scale projects, nothing that, something that's too small to be like a full linkage project, but too big to maybe, or outside of a skill set of a city or town planning department. So comprehensive and neighborhood planning, land use plan implementation, community design assessment, general community planning, data collection, data analysis and mapping, recreational trail planning, transportation safety and operations planning, and zoning and site planning. And if you're familiar with this program, you know that we partner with our friends down the hall at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and we work on teams on these projects to assist municipalities with some smaller scale types of projects. And if your community is interested, they should send an email to the techassist@cdrpc.org or call our office or CDRPC, and someone will, talk to you about your project and help you, guide you through the application process. Applications will be accepted through December 1st, 2021. And this, the information is on our website, and I'll provide a link in our meeting notes. Another funding or technical assistance opportunity is the ADA transition planning. We've mentioned this before, that CDTC has hired the Chazen companies to create adoption-ready Americans with Disabilities Act self-analysis and transition plans for municipal pedestrian infrastructure. We do have room, I believe it's for one more community. So if you are interested, please contact Carrie, and these are due in April. And there was a question about the 25% match and if there's flexibility with that requirement. I believe that 25% is pretty firm, because that is a requirement of our federal funding and what we need to provide. But if your community has questions, definitely reach out to Carrie, or if it's the technical assistance, reach out to our to CDTC or CDRPC, and someone can definitely talk about, how to scale a project or how to make it fit for that community. And we continue to work on implementing New Visions 2050. Our virtual learning series continues. It's on the third Tuesday of every month. Next Tuesday, we'll have a webinar on performance measures. Next month is Bike Month, so we'll be talking about how we're moving bicycling forward in the Capital Region. And then June, July, August, we're going to be doing a 3-part virtual mini complete streets workshop. So that stay tuned for more details on that. Other planning and project updates. You may be familiar with New York State released the statewide trails plan. There is a link here to that plan. I have invited OPRHP to attend our June meeting to present the statewide trails plan and talk about how it was developed and what is intended, how implementation is going to move forward, and how the state will assist communities in developing trail networks. Trail counts. This is something that has come up pretty frequently. And I think as the weather starts to get nice, more communities are talking about doing trail counts. We did some spot checks last year in the spring and summer and observed a significant increase in trail use. And there's some interest in, doing checks on those locations again this year, and then just continuing ongoing trail counts. So if you have questions about trail counts, if you're interested in doing trail counts, please let me know. CDTC does, we are thinking about, ways to do a more comprehensive trail count program, so that we have more ongoing data and we don't have to wait, every 10 years for a trail survey or census. So please contact me, or if your community plans on doing trail counts, if you've purchased equipment and you're going to install it to do automated trail counts, I'd love to work with communities in how we can maybe coordinate all of this data and have just a regional trail count dashboard. So there are some questions in the chat. Okay, so Kay Anderson Hanley was with us and she has to leave, but if anyone is interested in collaborating on a possible pilot project involving dual rider side-by-side bikes, especially for, okay, this actually, I don't know if Lindsay Garney is still on, but this was something that I thought, I had encouraged Kay to join us today and to have a discussion on this. But the idea of expanding bike share to older adults, or people with mobility impairments, to include more adaptive equipment like adult tricycles or recumbents. So there's some interest in that, and in the chat, you'll see Kay's email address if anyone is interested in collaborating or brainstorming with Kay on that. Her information is there. And then related to the trail counts, Tina from Saratoga Springs mentioned that they are planning to set up a newly purchased eco counter this month. So Tina, I will definitely be reaching out, and I would love to help you with that. And even, when you go out to install it, I could make the trip up there and help out, and we could see how this could be applied region-wide. And then the last other statewide, and if anyone from DOT is on and wants to jump in on this, the New York State plans on doing a bike plan, and we'll have a contract in place this summer on it. I don't know if there's anyone from New York State DOT that wants to add to this or clarify anything, but that's definitely a project that we will be watching and keeping people updated on. Okay. In the chat, it looks like there is a lot of interest in trail counts and interest in learning more about the eco counter. So I think that putting together something on that and doing a presentation will definitely be something we will try doing. So stay tuned for that. Status of CDTC planning initiatives. The spreadsheet will go out in your notes. I'm not going to read through every single one, but the Albany Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan has been completed. We heard from the city on that last month. The Village of Ballston Spa Bike and Ped Master Plan is getting started. There's a number of other municipal projects that are also ongoing or just about to kick off. The new linkage projects have been added to the list. And then there are other projects that we are working on, like the Patroon Creek Greenway study with the City of Albany. We did choose a consultant and notify the consultant teams last week. And we will be kicking that off fairly soon. We're also working with Albany County to look at the feasibility of the Albany County Loop Trail, which was identified in the Capital District Trails Plan. That's a smaller scale study that we contracted directly with the county to do. And then some other regional projects that are ongoing that may be of interest. So my last item is the meeting for next month. So traditionally for Bike Month, we have met outside in a community in person. And I didn't know if people would be, I'm leaving it TBD because I'm not certain that we might be able to do something, but I'm wondering if people would feel comfortable, since we haven't seen each other in a year, meeting outside somewhere at a new trail or other bike ped project. You know, maybe you might only want to attend if you're fully vaxxed, or but if this is something that people might be interested in, I can certainly coordinate something. I was thinking about the new connection on the Zim Smith Trail, but there's also the new South End Bikeway in Albany and a couple of other projects that have been completed since last year. Or there's the Albany Hudson Electric Trail in Rensselaer County that's been completed. So there's a lot has been, and the new Geyser Road Trail in Saratoga. So a lot has happened since we've last met in person. A lot of progress has happened. And it would be good to see each other and maybe get outside and do something socially distanced. Even, you know, it won't be like a bike ride together or a bike tour like we've done in the past, but maybe just being able to meet up and get out and see a project in real life. If anyone would be interested in that or has a new project in their community and they would be interested in helping coordinate, facilitate that meeting or meetup, please let me know. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll make a decision and get information out and let people know where, if we'll be able to do some sort of in-person outdoor meeting. And then if the weather doesn't cooperate, we can always just have our virtual meeting like we have been doing. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions related to that? So it looks like maybe some interest in getting outside. And then Jeanette mentioned that there were 4-wheel motorized vehicles on the Champlain Canal Trail last weekend. You mean like those quad kind of ATV things?
Yeah, that's an ongoing issue over there north of Waterford,
Yes.
south of Mechanicville.
Yep.
There are so
Yeah.
many routes where ATVs have just been, they've been using these areas for, you know, decades. It's really challenging to try to push them out.
Yeah, I mean, I know even like on some of the cities in the region have had trouble with ATVs on streets, really kind of creating unsafe, you know, conditions for everybody. But is there, does anyone know if there's signage there? I mean, those are definitely prohibited from being used on the trail, even.
Their signage, it says no motorized vehicles.
Yeah.
There was a nearby dirt bike there as well, but I don't know if he got on the trail. But the 4-wheel was on when we were on, and you know, like I want to say something, and I'm like, I don't want to get in the middle of this, so maybe more signage needs to be put up, or even just put something up that says, if you see these vehicles, please report to whatever. I mean, don't confront, but report, because I don't know, just it's just, you know, it's not fun when you're on there to come to be on a bike trail, human powered, and have a motorized vehicle, not just the noise and the speed, but the smell, and it's a different beast. And I think they have enough places they can ride. They don't have to go there.
I think with one of the issues in that area and a lot of the areas is that the trail provides a connection between some of the routes that they like to take. So, and I don't mean to sound like a sympathizer. I can't stand the ATVs at all, and I agree that they're a nuisance and dangerous. But yeah, the trail connects like different points that they're part of their like route that they're going on. So, you know, if you blocked off
Well, he was
access
driving.
points, yeah, like I know.
I mean, he
not
was
to get
driving
too
on
into
the
it,
trail.
but
So
right, but they go from, you know, one area east of the trail down the trail like north or south, and then they'll go onto an area west of the trail. So they'll like zigzag using the trail as a connector.
So did we
It's
build on
access.
their existing trails? Did we build on their existing trails? Is that
I mean, I'm sure,
what
I don't know, but I'm
happened?
sure that a lot of these facilities have been, like I said, they've been utilized by ATVs for decades. Like another example would be like the one that we've been calling the Mickey Mahar Trail, which is going to be would be on the east side of the Hudson between Rensselaer and Troy. There are ATVs that have been using that area for decades. So when you build a bike trail, eventually it's really hard to then get those users off, even though they are non-motorized, you know, traffic.
Yeah, I think more signage and
Well,
making commute. I mean, they also do, you know, Ed brings up a good point that for maintenance, it's makes the trails more difficult for other users. So I think that as more, you know, communities experience like all that um, destruction to their trails, hopefully they'll get, you know, more serious about enforcing it. But I mean, Jeanette, I definitely agree that reporting and not confronting is definitely the best what you should do when if you see that happening. It seems like this is
well,
happening
is there,
more.
yeah.
As a
And is there
long-term,
a way we can educate through reporting? You know, if we put signs up and say these, you know, if you see someone use it, you know, and that just kind of gives a little bit of, I don't want to be a hard nose to these people who have been using these for decades, but in all honesty, you know, we're trying to find safe avenues to commute and get from point A to point B, and then you run across this. I know it's not something new. We did the Erie Canal many years ago, and I had my little kids on there. And there was a four-wheeler coming at us, and it was like, wait, what are you doing here? So I think with maybe the increased use of electric electric bikes, or people may get the impression. So I think there has to be some sort of communication that's distinguishing the two, because I think when people see an electric bike and see how fast it goes and it's got that hum, they may be confusing it with motorized and think, oh, I can go on here with my bike or with my four-wheeler. So it would be nice to differentiate that as well. I think we need to educate more than, you know, reprimand right now, but like, how do we do that? By signage. And then if you put a phone number in there, like call if you see misuse, then at least people go, oh, we may get called on, so let's not do this. It's just kind of a like subliminal warning, not necessarily.
as a long-term representative of the on the New York State Trails Council, which takes up these issues, has been taking up these issues for about 40 years. There is no place for them officially in New York State law. New York State does sell them, but they do not have a official standing on the state roads or trails, except for use on private properties. This is different than many other states, particularly Western states, where there are official trails. So there is no official use that can take place on these trails we have, and that is lamented by these four-wheel and trail bike users. It's a problem that is very difficult to solve.
Yeah, and John mentioned that on the Zim Smith Saratoga County Sheriff's Department has been riding on the trail, and he says that they're ready to respond to other trails too. So, so yeah, I mean, there might be an opportunity, like, we're talking about education and an opportunity to coordinate with law enforcement. I don't know if the solution really is, to significantly increase law enforcement presence on trails. That's definitely doesn't necessarily make it. Some people may see that as it becomes a safer place to ride, but a lot of people see it as maybe a less friendly place to ride. So, or a less friendly
Mhm.
place to be, or maybe worried about, any sort of conflict. So, definitely finding a good solution, working with local governments and doing education. But this is definitely an ongoing issue. So we will be definitely reaching out. James said he was cycling on Tamarack Road near Grafton over the weekend and saw about 50 of them using National Grid property where there's signage saying no motorized vehicles. Oh my God, 50.
Yeah, no exaggeration. Well, I mean, not to go too far off topic, but one interesting thing I noticed was on that signage, it specifically outlined no motorized vehicles, which to me implied that cyclists and pedestrians were allowed to use those trails.
Mhm.
I don't know if that area is on the CDTC trail network radar per se, but it seemed like a pretty amazing opportunity to have a multi-use path. But obviously there's a huge conflict with ATVs there as well. And they just like totally destroy the landscape over there. I mean, just muddy nonsense everywhere.
Huh.
Anyway.
I mean, they've got the highest carbon footprint, those vehicles, and snowmobiles have the highest carbon footprint. So in theory, they shouldn't be on any of these environmentally nice trails, but
Difference is that the state regulations allow snowmobiles, and snowmobiles are registered
Yeah.
and collect a fee which they use for maintenance. And they have a system. You can send them to an official system. For the dirt bikes and the four-wheelers in New York State, we do not have a place to send them. Even if we, yes, we bought one, now where can we use it? That's on private property. That's the only answer we have. And it's not a answer that these users are likely to accept. And it's, I think, beyond our committee. It has been an unsolved problem that hasn't gone through the New York State legislature as e-bikes and snowmobiles have.
Yeah, and in addition to the trails, I mean, they, like I had mentioned there, I know they're an ongoing issue on the roads in Albany, and the city has started confiscating them, and then people need to pay thousands of dollars to get the vehicle back. It does, it creates a really unfriendly and dangerous atmosphere. And I think that the thought is like, oh, these must be kids, but I know in reading reports that, these are adults who are doing this. So, I think that creates another kind of obstacle to education, because I think it's the thought of like, I'm gonna just wanting to do it. Yeah, they're not kids, they're adults. So it's almost harder to educate adults about this kind of stuff than it is to do, young people who may just not realize that they're bothering someone or creating an unsafe situation. But maybe our friends like at the a bicycling coalition, or, you know, maybe an advocacy organization is better able to handle this by, you know, maybe proposing a state law change or something. But this is, you know, it's something that we're aware of at CDTC and definitely watching and seeing how we can help, but aren't sure that we can definitely fix through planning right now. But thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I have a question, just so, like CDTC, could that be their role with government aid, like with our state government and local agencies, to kind of work with them to come up with a place for some sort of registration or some sort of acknowledgement? I mean, I'm looking at that because, or asking you, because one of my goals is to try to get like questions about bicyclists on the motor vehicle law, and, you know, like where do we go to do stuff like that? Because I think that's something that's also missing. That's a gap in our education of motor vehicle drivers. We seem to miss the boat on asking anything about bicyclists and pedestrians on our basic permit tests and our licensing tests for driving these vehicles. So just a path of who do we contact, where do we go to kind of move this? I'm sure NYBC is maybe doing something on that level, but I don't know. I'm not
There are
on top of it.
legislative proposals, I don't have them in the top of my head, that are and have been proposed over the years to require that DMV put into their manuals and into their tests and into their later training curricula, bicycles and pedestrians. And we keep running into, they have already too much to accommodate, and little time or little space or little, and that keeps getting shortened. But there is legislation, and perhaps by next time I can get some references that you could back. But it's a statewide issue.
Yeah, the New York State Association of MPOs, we have like multiple working groups based on, you know, different programs, and we have a bike ped working group. And years ago, we worked on this issue. We proposed questions for the driver's test. And like Ivan was saying, you know, we've been met with resistance, but it, you know, it's definitely something that we have in our work plan every year that as an association to reach out and submit those questions again. You know, having groups like NYBC and stuff continuing to work on it is definitely great and helpful. The Association of MPOs continues to do it, just being persistent, unfortunately. But, you know, we agree that this is something that's kind of, that's missing, and that CDTC, we've done education, we've done law enforcement education. So actually educating law enforcement officials on bike ped and vehicle traffic laws, because, you know, sometimes some of the laws get like, they don't get enforced, and it's just because they aren't familiar with them. So we continue to do that. We continue to do education just to the general public on traffic safety. But yeah, these are all definitely some issues that we have and that we continue to work on. It's just, it hasn't been an easy fix, unfortunately, or a quick one, but we continue to work on it. Okay, is there, we have about 5-10 minutes. Does anybody else have a project or program they're working on that they want to give a quick update on?
I'll give you a very quick update on the doings of Cycle Schenectady. Recently on March 31st, we had a Zoom presentation on Schenectady City's bike master plan that was adopted in 2017, and precious little was done between then and now. So presenting was Rima, who did a terrific job. She was involved in that project when she was with the city planning department. And the other participants were the city engineer, Chris Wallen, and the current director of planning and development, Kristen Diot. It was quite well attended, more than 50 people on the Zoom, which is great. And it went well and was received well. And there's actually more was in the works than I was led to believe or was informed about in the past. And so there are actually a couple of projects ready to go this year and others being considered for next year. It's still kind of in the low-hanging fruit category, but some things are being done, so it was mildly encouraging for that reason. We also found out from the city engineer, who has been not answering my requests for things like the city paving plan, for dodging my questions for a year. All of a sudden they're going full transparent, and they have a portal on the city's website with all the paving projects so the citizenry can check on anything. So that's very good. And as far as activities, our one-year-old Cycle Schenectady organization has decided to focus on neighborhood rides this year, 5 or 6 of them, and the casual, family-oriented, slow roll type of ride. And again, in the city's various neighborhoods, and perhaps stopping to have a city neighborhood representative talk about his or her neighborhood. And we had a breakthrough with insurance. We've got a meager treasury, and we couldn't even afford insurance in our first year. And the Hamilton Hill Neighborhood Association has stepped up and has agreed to pay half of our insurance bill so we can actually have some insurance for the events that we have planned. So that's it. That's my report. Things are going okay.
Thanks, Art. And if anyone would like to see that presentation, we have uploaded it to the CDTC YouTube channel. So, just so you know, if you miss a meeting at CDTC, we are generally live streaming or recording and then uploading them so you can catch them later on, or you can share them with someone who might be interested. So feel free to check that out. James, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, really quick, go through a handful of updates. We were awarded a linkage study from CDTC, obviously. We're looking at the Federal Street corridor in Troy, so right when you come over the Green Island Bridge, focusing on the River Street and Federal, and then the 6th Ave and Federal intersections. And then we're almost ready to go public with our zoning code, where we are proposing no parking minimums, and instead in some districts we have parking maximums, which I'm very, very excited about. We just finished up the Congress Street Bridge study. We're looking at a multi-use trail over the Congress Street Bridge. We were awarded funding for a multi-use path over the Green Island Bridge. So now we're looking to create a loop trail with the city of Waterville and the town or village of Green Island, which is also very exciting. And then with our Coexist project through our local advocacy organization Transport Troy, they just released the Troy Trails map. I will throw a link in the chat for that. There's a page in there about capital coexist language, which is another exciting thing. And that group will have a demo parklet that's going to be able to be scaled up, I guess, coming out in the next month or two.
Great. And James, thanks for sharing the link to the Sustainable Futures Conference in April. This is a virtual conference. There's a link in the chat to it if you're interested in registering. A lot of local agencies and organizations are sponsoring it and participating in it. James and I are both. And I think Tina are all facilitating breakout sessions. So if you're interested, definitely sign up. And also Jeanette mentioned that there's a slow roll in Saratoga the last Sunday of the month, and you can get more information at bikeatoga.org. Any other last updates? Tina?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know the official opening and ribbon cutting of the Geyser Road Trail is going to be April 22nd. So that's Earth Day at 11 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park. So we're extremely excited about that.
Great, thank you. All right, so we are out of time. If you have other information that you want to share, please feel free to email it to me and I can put it in the notes. I will be in touch about our May meeting, and I hope everyone has enjoys the weather and has a good rest of the month. We'll see you.